Hello, most divine beings. Hello, hello. Welcome to Naked Hearts, which is a segment of heart activation. And in this, I invite people onto this video cast to be able to share their personal experiences with life. Now, we all have our own unique experiences that have created lenses of how we perceive the world. And by going through and investigating and learning more about people, we can try to understand why people do the things that they do. And really, my focus and my goal, my intention for this video cast is to really uncover raw, vulnerable heart presence, to have a relatable space with no judgments where we can be like, I understand that. And through sharing our experiences, we're able to open our eyes up to maybe experiences that we haven't seen before. So, with that being said, I invite you to participate in exploring ways that you can understand and relate and open up your perception, open up your mind to new way of seeing things. And thank you so much for tuning in. Recording in progress. So yeah, like I said, kind of really the general feeling of all of this is being raw and vulnerable and talking about things. Especially here we have you, Danny, who I started to get drawn to you when you started talking about how you are quitting porn and how the whole addiction to porn, because it's really jaded the way that you have been in relationships. And so when I read that, I was like, okay, here's a guy who is bringing in things that men don't typically want to talk about. And I like had to just figure out or learn more about you and your story. And so here we are.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
guess I can touch on that first. Like, it gives a false narrative, right? Like it absolutely is not based in reality for when I look at a sex ideal for what I want in a person. It's not realistic to think that all of the categories that I'm looking up is going to be what I'm going to get, right? But somewhere in there, what happens is I get drawn to what I'm seeing for so long that when it comes time to engage with another person, that it just becomes I don't want to say unwanted, but it's just not pleasurable. The pleasure receptors are like cut off, right? Because like I'm not seeing what I saw already, you know. And so it really messes with it. So it's been like 3 months now, and there was a couple almost slips where I turned it on like twice in the last 3 months. It was like, no, 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 you're not supposed to be doing that. But I've been practicing abstinence on top of that, just trying to get to know me in a more deep spiritual and emotional way. Yeah.
I think that's I mean, some of the things that you said. So the pleasure receptors. And I think that's huge because it's like a lot of people don't think that, sex or porn or love addiction is a real thing. And it's it actually desensitizes you to more of life than drugs and alcohol can do, because there's such a heightened in what you have experienced with pornography and whatever else that may be, that you can't even enjoy some of the most what's meant to be the most loving and pleasurable moments. You're not even able to enjoy that because of how overstimulated you had been with your receptors in the past. So yeah, I think that's really a huge thing. And how long, so you being also in the rooms of recovery, like the 12 steps, so like how long have you known that a oh, there's so many questions coming through. I'm curious though, how long and how did you learn about more so of like your sex addiction or porn addiction? And yeah, like how long did you see yourself having that?
So what had happened? So I've always, I through doing step work and stuff like that, like I always kind of knew that I had an issue with being with women. Women not being the issue, me being a part of the scenario being the issue, right?
Mhm.
Because like women are fine without me, but when I bring myself in a non-spiritual way into a woman's life, it just becomes disastrous. And so through doing the step work and like, being armed with facts about myself, like I woke up one day and I was like, I gotta stop, and like I had people around me that were like kind of pointing things out and like guiding me, and I was like, I really just gotta stop, like I gotta, you know, no more being extremely flirtatious, no more, because what it was looking at women as objects of lust, right? Like as objects of pleasure for me. What can you give me, right? That's always what it's been, per my lifestyle and everything else. And so I was like, I just got to stop doing it, and it just came like that, and I just did. And then so like as I was sitting there, I got done reading a book by DeBron Franklin called, oh my gosh, I can't remember. The Wait's also a good book by him and Megan Good, but I can't remember. It's something man. I don't remember, but it basically talks about toxic masculinity, masturbation, pornography, all those things. And so when I started reading about it, I got intrigued and I started looking up, uh, how pornography is tied to the rape culture. I watched quite a few videos of women that did pornography that came out and said like, hey, when I got there, I had to do stuff that I didn't sign up for, and I didn't know how to say no because I was already there, right? So then, as I watch it, I become less interested because I'm like, man, that might be one of them too, or that might be one of them too, or and again, it just gives me a false narrative. But yeah, so I don't know. I was just sitting there one day, and I was like, you know what? Like, I got sobriety down. I'm like trying to cut out all these different characteristics, and I was like, I don't really know enough about myself because I'm so focused on the opposite sex all the time. Um, and I didn't know how to be a man, it took months of like literally almost daily work, reading books, researching, working on myself, prayer, meditation to like say today, like, yeah, I'm a man now, I don't look at women the same, but like it takes work. And I've noticed a lot of men don't necessarily want to speak on it.
Yeah.
Uh, they have a hard time. I have a friend that kind of was like, "Hey man, I like what you're doing. I might need to check it out one day, right?" But like no one really wants to admit that like these things that like the world is telling me I'm supposed to do, that like that's not what it is. Like that is not healthy for me or the person that I'm engaging with at all.
No, oh my gosh. Yeah. And that's a whole other thing because it does. I mean, it's just the whole society. Once you see what you're doing isn't benefiting you or the other person is quite toxic, then to see like, holy shit, like everybody else is, like it's not just me, however, you know, we can only really change ourselves, and focus on ourselves. So that's very it's also very empowering to recognize all of that, like because some people just don't even recognize that in itself, they don't see it as a problem, and that's sad.
Well, and a lot of people take it as a joke, right? Like I made a post,
Mhm.
and that's where you had kind of seen and we started interacting. I made
Mhm.
a post, and majority of the people, a bigger percentage, just laughed at it and thought it was funny. The same when I talked about being abstinent,
Yeah.
people laughed; they thought it was funny, right? I don't know if it was like they didn't believe it just because of the way that I was living, or whatever the case would be. Like it was more like a joke to everybody instead of like, like I don't know how many people have been like, dude, I don't know, I couldn't just not have sex, right? And I'm like, if I don't eat or drink, at some point I might die. If I don't have sex, at some point I'm just gonna live a full life without sex. And I'm not gonna die just because I didn't have sex, right? Like it'll be okay. And then like when I looked into it more and started seeing how it affects like the your spiritual side in such a big way, because every time that I'm having intercourse, whether I know it or not, I'm sharing some kind of spiritual experience with somebody else. right?
Yeah.
Because it's a spiritual act to me.
Yeah.
And so like I may be like leaving bad toxic parts of me with that person and vice versa in more of a like spiritual sense. And so I was like, nah, I don't, I looked at it as kind of like I used to kidnap,
Mm,
like not necessarily like not actually kidnap, but
right.
like take like emotionally kidnapping women, right?
Yeah.
Like just taking them in and then like,
Hijacking.
yeah, hijacking, right? And then
Mhm.
like, okay, well now the shine has wore off, so now it's time to, call it a day. And it just got old. Like, it just got really old.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's just like that's a piece, right? I have so much. That's just like that's a tiny, tiny
Sliver.
piece.
It's just a sliver. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then this brings me to like, so how were you raised, in like, what was your relationship with your mom and your dad, if they were even together, or how did your father, or if you didn't know your father, like, so do you see where the connection is between that and how you and your interactions were as a child?
So when it comes to the sex portion, I would go back to between 5, 7, don't know the exact age. I had a babysitter with me and my brother that would like, from what my brain remembers is like coming out of the shower like naked and then like going in there into the room with this guy and his girlfriend that were supposed to babysit us and them just doing like really weird, at the time didn't seem too weird. Like I was a kid, like I thought it was like, I don't know, normal, whatever, but like
Right.
me and my brother did stuff, me and and it's I feel like that abuse kind of gave me a false narrative of what sex is supposed to be, moving forward. And I didn't realize it, as time went, but through reflection, I'm like, oh my gosh, right? Like, because when that first happened, there was really no emotion attached to it. It was just like an act.
Right.
And so that's what I did for years, was just like, there's not really any emotion attached to it. I might say there is, but that's because I had narcissistic ways. So like, why wouldn't I tell you that there's more connected than what it really was, right? The same
Right.
way, I feel like these people were lying to us and maybe saying nice things to us, and I didn't know that it all tied together so much until I started, digging deeper into that. And that's a whole nother like
Right.
that's a that's a big one. That's
So, and that's, I mean, seeing all of these things connected to, the child, well, any of the childhood traumas, it's huge. So I feel, how else was your childhood? Like, how was the relationship between you and your brother, and like, how early was drugs and alcohol introduced? Or, I mean, because I know even running the streets as like a young kid, like it all seems normal. Like
yeah.
nothing seems out of place because it's just like what you're a part of. So yeah,
So
like,
like
yeah, paint us a
a-
picture.
a-
What does that look like?
after that abuse like happened, me and my brother came home one day from school. Our bags were packed on the porch. My mom had us go with my dad, who prior to that I had no recollection of because he left when I was like young. I don't know how many gallons of milk he was buying, but like he was gone for a while. He went to the store for a long time,
Hmm.
and I have to incorporate humor. I don't know why. I'm sorry. I know it is. Yeah. Um, so I went with him, and that was like, so we were closeted in a way that not necessarily my sister, my stepsister, but me and my brother at least, you know, getting beat up at home by my dad a lot, like a lot of just like torturous acts, realistically. Like you have people that get like beat, abused, like we were like quite literally being tortured by both him and my stepmom. And they were bigger, like we were tiny kids, and they were bigger people, and that lasted most of my young childhood to like my teens. So like I didn't experience like sex, girlfriends, friends necessarily, you know, uh got picked on at school because of the classes I was in. My dad thought it would be, cute to suggest special education for me because, when I would go to school, I would want to like fight with other people because I couldn't fight him at home, right? So I got picked on a lot for that. And so like girls were out of the question. I can vividly remember maybe when I was like 12, 13, I had started, I guess, like dating this girl who always wore Eeyore overalls. And like she came to the house one day to ask for me, and like my dad and my stepmom totally just like embarrassed me and just made me like look like a piece of garbage in front of her. And I was like, I didn't even get to kiss her yet. Like, what are you guys doing?
Mm.
Everyone else around me at school is like talking about sex and talking about hanging out and partying and all these other things. And like I never even knew what any of that was, until I left him. Then that's when things got really crazy. And my dad was like very racist. Joined the Aryan Nation when he was in prison. And so when I lived with him, one of my best friends, well, my best friend at the time he was black, and like my dad would, continuously throw the N-word around whenever he'd like walk past. And it was just really, really, I almost feel like even though the physical abuse was like super terrible, I feel like the mental abuse was way more damaging. Because I had gotten numb to getting my ass kicked. Like
Yeah.
whatever you're gonna do, I'm sure it's not as bad as the last thing you did, even though it ended up being. But I think the mental abuse is what kind of like really triggered me a lot. And I remember before I think I left his house at like 14, something like that. And I remember trying to drink a beer in his garage because he like forced me to. And I was almost crying because I was like, this is so terrible. This tastes so nasty. I don't want it. Right.
Hmm.
And so who would have thought that I'd be an alcoholic? But when I moved to my mom's house, that's when it all really started because she was living by herself. She was with her husband, now husband, my dad now.
Okay.
Uh, she was with him, but they lived in separate homes. So I moved in with her, and she was always at work. And she lived in a bad neighborhood in Racine, and so I just immediately started like running the streets like immediately.
Hmm.
Next door neighbor introduced me to like drinking and smoking pot and hanging out with women and stuff like that. So once that started, I think I didn't even care about women when I first started drinking stuff. Realistically, like it was cool to like hang out and like talk to women, but I didn't even really care. Like I just wanted to get messed up all the time
Right.
because I didn't have to think of because it was like when I moved, I almost just like my brain blocked out everything that had just happened to me prior to that and just like shut it off. Um, and so drinking just like helped with that a lot. Uh, and then I think when I was like 16 is when I finally got me a girlfriend, did the deed. And, from there, it was just like, well, that was cool, but I kind of want more somewhere else. And yeah, that was just wild. Um, I don't know where I'm going with any of this, but
That's okay.
I guess I'm just trying to give like a rundown per like the alcohol stuff like that because I still want to touch back on the sexual abuse stuff
Yeah.
here in a moment since we have plenty of time. So basically, fast forward, I end up, uh, I actually caught some kind of feelings for this first person that I had sex with, and uh, it turned out she was like sleeping with everybody, and
Mm.
like I stayed because I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like I'm pretty sure you're just supposed to like I don't know. Like I'm like 16, so I'm like I stayed and like endured a lot of hurt from that.
Mm.
And so then once that happened, I was like, okay, never again. I will never let that happen again. Like it's like no,
Oh, why
like
not?
it almost was like, victim to abuser. Um,
Mm.
until I'd say, I don't know, I met my oldest son's mom when I was 18. Until I met her, that's when I really Like after my first, I had like a spree of like just random women. And then when I got with her, she was a little bit older than me and like kind of seemed like she had her head on straight. And I was like, I'm gonna give it one last try. And like I fell in love with her. What I thought was love,
Right.
right? And I'll explain that too. Because my idea of love was flawed then. I didn't have any idea what it really was. But from what I thought, I was like madly in love. This is going to be the woman I marry, propose to her, everything. She was doing the same kind of stuff, and like I had already had trust issues, so that was like back into like looking through phones and like all of that toxicity, right?
Hmm.
And so when that ended, I was like, okay, now for sure, never again am I gonna like get too attached. Like it's just not happening.
Yeah.
I'm only entering situations when they benefit me, and I'm only entering situations that I know that I can have full control of. So it was almost like the Lion and the Gazelle from there. Like it was kind of like I was seeking out women that might have been more vulnerable or just had a breakup or might not have been necessarily well or women from the bar. It was always like someone like me, realistically, somebody that was like on the same level as me, like uh but I knew that I could like manipulate the situation.
Do you
And I
feel
did that
that,
for a long time.
I'm sorry. Do you feel that you did that consciously though? Like where you consciously picked females that you knew that you could manipulate?
Uh, Not necessarily. I feel like I was in like survival mode,
Right.
especially, with the life that I lived. I almost just felt like, yeah, like I was in survival mode, like, because I was like, I lived with every one of them almost. Like
Um,
I lived with so many women, right?
yeah.
Because like where I was at, I didn't want to be in the same place too long. And so, yeah, I think it was kind, what I think it was a conscious decision, right? Because like if I'm searching you out, if you have a vehicle, if you have a home, if you have anything I didn't have, you had to have. Like it did, your personality didn't matter, none of that. Looks didn't even necessarily matter. Uh, I I didn't really focus on anything except for like what could I possibly get out of this,
So it
and
was
where
a
can I
transaction.
kind of, yeah, where can I party the most too, right? Like where can I get away with behaviors that I wouldn't be able to get away with, where I'm at now or whatever the case would be. Um, but that part started happening once I guess you would say I started like not be because I started doing opiates when I was like 19. So once that came into play, I literally was in survival mode because like I needed to find a way to get that at any point. Because with opiates, once I tried them, it was kind of over with. Drinking wasn't like I had to wake up in the morning and do it. I mean, I'd party a lot, but like I wasn't dependent on that until like way later on in life. Um, but the opiates, it was immediate. I was like, yep, this is exactly what I need. That's what I'm gonna do. I started out, I was selling them, because first I started selling weed because I was like, I don't even really like weed, so like I can sell weed because I won't smoke it all. Um, but then opiates came, and I was like, ooh, I don't think I really want to sell these. I think I want these. And so then that I really was in survival mode at that point.
Well, it's interesting. I'm as you're talking and I'm like and I'm like I find some of these I chuckle because I relate to what you're
Right.
saying, and it's like I wonder though, like if people who are listening are like, holy shit, like is that weird that we're laughing? I mean, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me, but like I totally get it though, because it's like how everything is like, okay, how can I take this, 10 cents and make it into a dollar or
Right.
whatever it is? It's just like, how can I make something out of nothing with
Right.
everything? Yeah.
Well,
Um,
I hope that they're like, holy shit,
yeah.
right? That's the response I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that they're like, if they haven't done it, that they're like, okay, that's something I'm not gonna do. Like that's the plan, right? Like that's the main purpose is that maybe I can help you not want to try that because it's probably not a good idea, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh, I think I meant more so like laughing at some of these things, like chuckling, like, oh my God. Like, so,
Well, well, yeah, and but I think that comes along with it. I was reading. oh my gosh, I can't remember. It's one of my recovery things where
Hmm.
it's kind of like you get to a point where like you're able to look back and laugh
Hmm.
because of like because of the knowledge I have now. I look back at my younger self and I'm like, what are you what are you doing? Like, are you crazy? Like in the moment it wasn't funny. In the moment it wasn't
Right.
funny at all. There was
Yeah.
literally nothing funny about it. Like,
Yeah.
and anyone that's in the moment right now, I'm definitely not laughing at you, right? Because like I know how scary it is. Which is why I have a solution. Uh,
Right.
you know,
And I think too, uh, because when we are in that in the thrones of addiction, of any addiction, it's you look back and nobody could have told you differently, like that's what I
Mhm.
see with myself. It was like, and that's, I feel, for me, why I feel I chuckled, because it was like there were some times I thought, I'm not that bad or whatever, like, and then I chuckle because I'm like, damn, like nobody could have told me different. Nobody could have, and I'm sure that they had. It was just a matter of me, like I had a certain process that I needed or went through.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I had to endure a lot of pain,
yeah,
which I'm grateful. I'm grateful I endured all that pain so I can share with somebody else. But I was given enough strength to do so, right? Like I have to remember that. Like I was given,
you're doing a buzzy thing again. There,
okay,
yep,
give me
it
2
stopped.
seconds.
It stopped. Yeah.
Okay, it's not there anymore.
No, I just kind of stopped. Weird. Um, yeah, I was trying to notice if you were doing anything different, but you were not doing anything different. Um,
Hmm.
so now I mean, I would like to go back to the molestation when you were younger. Did you tell your mom or anybody about that?
I didn't know. I feel like at the time I didn't know that there was anything wrong with what was going on.
Okay.
Because even after we left, me and my my relative like kind of continued
Okay.
that behavior because like we kind of thought that that was what we were supposed to do, and it just kind of on its own like we stopped. So like
Right.
I didn't know that there was anything wrong with that until I got older, and started hearing about like stuff like that happening, and then I
Right.
was like, oh, like I better never tell anybody that happened to me.
So shame like came up like huge then.
Yeah, I didn't want to be I didn't want to feel like it was going to demasculate me,
Right.
make me less of a man, um, which is false. And I believe that because I've done a podcast or two talking about it, and I believe that people listen to it that have dealt with it, but it's hard to it was hard to get to this point and be able to be open about it. But now I freely do it and like I'm okay with it. Like it took some work. I did some EMDR therapy for it, a lot of prayer. I had to find myself spiritually, and I had to get rid of the drugs and alcohol. That was the first thing. I had to get rid of that, um, so I can tackle it and deal with it. Um, and it doesn't bother me anymore. It doesn't make me feel any kind of way because I understand that it wasn't me that did that. But it definitely doesn't make you less of a man. I don't believe at all. If anything, if I'm able to speak up about it happening to me, it makes me more of a man to be able
Yeah.
share my experience so that somebody else might be able to get some help and share their experience.
Yeah. I I mean, and I get chills just like I don't, I mean, I think that you probably do recognize the potency of your message and how needed it is at this point in time for humanity and for people to really start to look at the shit that happens in the world going back to their childhood, because so many people, especially men, don't want to talk about those things, and
Well, and I believe you live differently growing up after that happens to you. I felt like in every instance I had to be more of a man once I found out like that it was a bad thing to happen to me. I had to make sure that like not only did I not say nothing about it, but I had to become more of a man, and like in the way that society wanted me to be a man.
So like
Over
pushing, force.
over yeah, overly aggressive, dominant, all the things that society tells me I have to be a man, which again is false. Those were all the things that I was like, I have to be in control, all of that. But like I talk about it now because I know the process leading up to like before I asked for help. I remember those days of like having traumatic nightmares of like I'm an adult in the nightmare, but it's happening to me and I'm an adult and I can't stop it still.
Mm.
Like
Can you repeat that again? So,
so I would have these traumatic nightmares where my abusers would be doing the same thing or like having us because they did stuff to us too. And it would be happening to me, but I'm an adult in the situation and I can't do anything about it still.
wow.
And so I'm like stuck in it. And then I would wake up and just be like, full of sweat and like, crying and just like I had quite a few suicide attempts based on, just feeling that and like knowing it's not right, but like not knowing if I can trust somebody to tell, like if I could tell somebody about it. And
Right.
then my process of speaking up started when I went to detox. They asked, they had some lady come in that was like she was the EMDR specialist, but she was just coming in to like talk to me about just like my childhood in general. And for some reason, because she was like, do you have any past traumas? And for some reason, I just like for the first time was like tired, and I'm like, yeah. And I started telling her, and like I was crying, she was crying, and I was like, okay, this is. And I felt a little bit better after, just a little bit. But then that opened it back up though. When I told her, that's when I started having the nightmares because now it's like in the forefront of my mind, and I'm getting no help for it whatsoever. Um,
And you were in detox at this time. So it was like you had no drugs to numb your brain or,
mhm.
or anything like that. So, okay. So how did you go forward with all, yeah.
It took a while for me to ask for help. I was in and out of the hospital like quite a few times over the good span of like last year for mental health stuff. Pertaining like specifically to that, I didn't know that that was literally the root of my problem that I was facing mentally.
Yeah.
And so like I was in and out of the hospitals. I got not banned, but like they would not save a bed at any county hospital for me. I had to go to Winnebago, and I just luckily got and of course I'm still having all those nightmares. They're putting me on all different kind of meds, which are like some of them were magnifying the nightmares and magnifying the emotions and so finally, like fast forward, I ended up for the last time going to Winnebago, and I was like, "Put me somewhere safe, please. Put me somewhere safe." And I got hooked up with Green Lake County and got a therapist there, and like immediately told him about that. He was like, "Yeah, I do EMDR stuff," and I was like, "Thank you, God. Like, thank you, God." And it's crazy because when I look at it now, I'm so glad I had all those nightmares, and I'm so glad I experienced all of like that part of it as well because like I feel like a good percentage of the time men aren't saying nothing about it, so men might be experiencing those things.
Yeah.
Uh, and maybe even for longer as me, right? Like I think of like men that maybe don't use substances or don't I guess you would say not numb in any other way. So to just constantly have that in your mind. But I do believe that that goes. I do believe that childhood traumas kind of tie with addiction, alcoholism, things of that nature, right? Because we're still trying to fill a void
Yeah.
from something. Um, but yeah, I started going to therapy and being able to like be open about it with this guy. And like when I did the EMDR therapy, it was so intense that I was literally like I was walking in the experience, like as myself walking into the experience and like just letting go of it,
Mhm.
forgiving those people because they were sick too. And um,
Mhm.
I thought that was going to be hard, but it was, I think because I had recovery too, that really helped with the forgiveness. But like forgiving those people for myself so that I didn't have to be in pain anymore. Like, because I don't agree with what they did, but if I keep that hate on my heart for what they did to me, it's gonna just damage me.
Mm.
And I'll end up back out there on the streets again, from those types of emotions continuously going through me. So I was able to forgive them for that, and it's probably one of the most powering experiences I have to share now. But I was looking up I was doing some research online about, uh, I don't know the exact percent, but about like the suicide rate in men that deal with childhood traumas, that deal with traumas that they didn't speak up about. Um, and then when it comes to sexuality too, right? Like, uh, you deal with those traumas, and so then you have this struggle of, do I like men?
Mm.
Do I like women? And and if I'm being honest, this is the first time I've ever said it to anybody ever in my life. I've always kept it with nobody else, but I live free today, so like judgment is judgment. But there was a point in my like late teens, early 20s where I was like, I don't I don't know. Like, I don't know what I like. I don't know what I'm supposed to like. Because sex again was just like an act. So like I was like, I don't know. Like, could I just do it with anybody and be okay? So I had moments where I like almost like questioned my sexuality. Like, I'm not sure, right? Because when I look back at it, I was doing these things with a person of the same sex, and it seemed like it was okay, right? And so like it kind of like twisted my mind a lot, and like I was unsure, so I doubted myself. I remember when I was a teenager, I had a there was somebody in the neighborhood that like there was a gay man in the neighborhood, and I had said something to him or asked him a question about like, man, how would you know, or whatever the case would be. And he ran back and told all the people, for the kids from the neighborhood, like, you know, Dan's gay. Dan's gay. Like, he asked me this question. He's gay. And
Oh,
so like, and so
wow.
like I kind of I had to fight through that one, right?
Right.
Like I had to like I didn't even get at the time, like I felt like I didn't even get an answer. All I got was like ridicule from it, right?
Right.
Like if he would have sat down with me, like I could explain to him why my mind was going where it was going, but I again didn't have the opportunity as a man to be able to speak up about my traumas, and why how they're affecting me now. And so that furthermore made me not even want to talk about them to anybody, because if people are just going to react in that way and just go and run and tell everybody, and all those things, like, why do I want to have a discussion, right?
It
um
confirmed
and
your fears.
yeah,
Mm.
and and so then that alone, that experience definitely made me feel like I had to like kick up the masculinity thing, because I'm like, all right, now these people from the neighborhood think I'm gay or whatever the case be. So now I really, 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 really have to like put on this mask of like who I think I am, and I wore it for a long time. But yeah, there was some confusion there. And I actually literally just wasn't sure. And I don't know why it came to my heart to want to talk about it right now or bring it up right now, but I do feel like there's a lot of men that like might struggle with like the internal thought of or fear of, man, I don't know who to talk to about this, because I don't want to get made fun of, or I don't want, whatever the case would be. And
Mhm.
like I think it's okay. I think it's okay to talk about it. We just need to find people that we can confide in, especially like I'm okay with it now being open, but like if it were to be an intimate conversation, like I wouldn't want nobody running and telling somebody. I would want to know that, like,
Right.
I had, some confidentiality. Um, but that's another thing that men deal with and struggle with. And that was one of the biggest things. And I don't know how I got to this point just by talking about that, but like the toxic masculinity and like the mask of like I have to be a man. Growing up, like, you don't cry. If you do cry, it gets worse. Um,
Mm.
Everything you do, especially growing up in the 90s, early 2000s, that's gay. That's gay. That's gay.
Yeah.
Everything that everybody was doing, that was like what everybody was saying in response to it. And so, like, for the longest time, I wouldn't even wear purple. I wouldn't even wear pink, because
Yeah.
that was feminine. That was and so showing emotions was just kind of like it wasn't a real thing for me. Um, but the more that you suppress those emotions, the more damage is caused to yourself, and then what happens is a lot of times that gets projected onto women. Women become like the perfect target, not perfect target, but like the easiest target for me to project how I actually feel. It's usually like the person you're with, your spouse, your girlfriend, whatever the case would be. I don't know how to express how I'm feeling, so I'm just going to yell at you.
Hmm.
It turns into physical violence. It turns, you know, um, in some people, especially with the childhood trauma, I feel like a lot of people, it happened to them, so they're going to do it to somebody else,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I'm grateful that I never had that thought in my head, but that's real, right? But yeah, I think that men use women as a punching bag when it comes to their emotions because they don't know how to express them. They can't necessarily go up to their guys and talk about how they're feeling because their guys are just going to call them a bitch or
Crazy.
whatever the case would be. We're probably going to get bleeped out if we're on YouTube because I'm just like slinging them off left and right. But
Oh, I haven't. Oh, I don't know. I haven't
yeah,
noticed that my stuff shit has been censored before. I don't put it on
okay,
that it's
cool.
not for kids. So like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah.
okay, okay.
Like, no,
Um,
I can't censor myself that way.
but but yeah, like you can't tell your guys, you can't tell anybody. So therapy is very important, right? I suppressed a lot of feelings that now today, like I refuse to do that. You know, yeah,
Yeah, I feel the more you suppress those things or the more that you just don't look at those things, the bigger the hole, the deeper the hole goes or the bigger the void gets, and I think too when you talk about your dreams, you know, our dreams are often times when our body cannot process or we aren't listening to ourselves in the waking state. So it's like
mhm.
when we dream, it's our body telling us to fucking pay attention to me, like me. So that's huge. Also,
Yeah, I like that you said that.
yeah, yeah, because
I
I mean
really like that you said that
that's
because I used to not welcome my dreams, nightmares, whatever.
Mhm.
But the more that I pray, the more that I meditate, uh, I feel like my God is taking things from me that aren't supposed to be there. So sometimes when I have those dreams, I look at them closely when I wake up if I can remember them,
Yeah,
and like, okay, what am I being told here?
right.
What lesson do I have to learn from this? Yeah, I like that you said that.
Yeah, I and well, what I see and what I resonate with for myself, yeah, is that our consciousness in the waking state is only able to process so much, and that
Mm.
when we go to dream, that we're able to, connect with source directly and bring those messages back down, or it just shuts down our mind. So yeah, I think it is really important to pay attention to dreams, and that says a lot about what we actually aren't paying attention to in the real waking life. So the other thing that I do want to bring up is the EMDR. So and I want to bring that up because so you had a great healing process with that. And and also I just want to break it down. So EMDR is eye movement desensitization. What's the R part? Recalibration or something? Do you are you
Something like, yeah,
okay?
something along those lines.
So I'm
It's
just
like
gonna
word association, and yeah,
yeah. So I'm
not
just
everyone has a good experience. Not everyone has a good experience.
right. Uh so I'm just gonna break it down for the people listening if they don't know what EMDR is. So basically, and you may have done it differently than I did. I held the little shakers or vibrator things in my hands, and so you go through those very traumatic experiences and they go through different series of left and right. And what the left and right buzzing or eye movement does is it helps your left side connect with your right side. And so when you are actually reliving this experience, you're able to actually connect the emotions to your body and able to actually process your all of the emotions, and that's how that works. So if you have a therapist, like it sounds like you did, where you were able to actually process it and integrate those, it's very healing. When I had my EMDR, I went off the fucking deep end. I wasn't using at the time, and I wasn't I don't know. I tried to work afterwards, and it has been a really beautiful experience for a lot of people. But so I just want to make sure for whoever is listening to
Yeah.
listen to your medical practitioner, about
Right.
right for you, because it is very different for everybody and what
Yeah.
you
I absolutely, I had to do a lot of regular therapy before I was even able to touch that,
mm-hmm.
especially at being an addict and alcoholic.
No.
Uh, if I jump into that too soon, yeah, I could easily fly off the deep end. Yeah, so I had to do a lot of therapy, and I had to make sure that my doctor okayed it to make sure that I was okay with doing that. We did bilateral sounds,
Okay.
headphones,
Yeah.
and eye movement on a ball on a screen, color association, and then like word association. And then we would just like sit in our thoughts. But yeah, that can be traumatic for it doesn't work for everybody, right? It can be traumatic for people, especially if some of the other things aren't cleared up yet.
Right.
Um, it's just too much to handle
It
at
is.
one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's, also that's basically what trauma is. You literally are just opening up all of your traumatic experiences so you can experience them differently. So
Right.
trauma happens when our bodies just shut down because our emotions are so heightened. So you think of yourself as like a 5, 7-year-old kid that has, somebody is completely invading your space that you're supposed to have a safe space, and like you shut down. So it's like no wonder why years later it's starting to like completely misfire, because you have no idea.
Yeah.
It's so complex. But yeah, that's why a lot of people black out their childhood.
And yeah.
But
What did we have? 45 minutes?
oh, it is whatever. Yeah, I have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
Because
whatever.
I do want to offer up, because there's so much that I didn't say. I do want to offer up that if there is anybody listening, I'm sure my info will be attached to
Yeah.
this So I think a good form of, right, because it doesn't always have to be that. A lot of times I've noticed that just interaction with somebody that's dealt with an experience and being able to just talk about it is therapeutic, right? I've gotten more out of just talking to other people about these experiences than I necessarily have out of my therapy. The therapy definitely helped as like an eye opener, but when it comes to healing and like being more comfortable talking about it, it's because I'm talking to people about it.
Right.
Uh, the same thing with my drinking using. The more that I talk to people, the easier it is for me to stay sober and not to use. God is involved in all of my affairs, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I okay, so two things. I want to touch NAMI. So you are now a peer, you do a peer support with NAMI? So that's national.
So I got certified for in your own voice, which in November you basically talk in front of like schools and different establishments to give like a general idea of what mental health is and
Mhm.
uh, what to look for, stuff like that. And I'm now getting certified in peer-to-peer, which is just a more intimate, smaller group setting. It's a virtual thing. So I'm doing that right now as well. And I also do free haircuts for the recovery community. Anybody dealing with any mental health issues, free haircuts.
You really?
I absolutely enjoy that.
That's
Yeah,
why don't you get your like license with that?
yeah. That's definitely that's in the plans for early next year to do that,
Oh,
to get my license. Yeah, yeah. That's
you're
definitely in
like
the
the
works because I
perfect
eventually want to.
energy for that.
Yeah, I love it. I'm cutting one of my buddies' hair tomorrow that's in recovery, and I do it for free. I just enjoy doing it. I just really have fun doing it, and um, I have employment, so like I make my money that way. So if I can use a gift that was given to me just to help out, why wouldn't I?
Hmm. So I do want to also go into so God and spirituality and whatnot. So I know for me, like for me, I was raised Catholic and Episcopalian, and I had a whole bunch of different belief systems. However, just I always felt a strong connection just to source, like in general, like the great love, basically, is how I see it. For me, connecting to that unconditional love and loving presence and God was huge in healing because I didn't feel I had a
Hmm.
purpose for like why would all this shit happen, you know what I mean? People question that. So what was your spirituality like and experiences like prior to getting clean, and how did you become so a part of how did you incorporate spirituality into your being now?
So growing up, I had the similar experience as you. Catholic, went to Catholic school, Bible studies, stuff like that.
Mm,
Once I moved to Wisconsin, I didn't do church. I didn't do anything like that. It wasn't until I got to recovery that I found an idea of God. And my idea of God was just like love, compassion, kind of like how you're saying, like just love, right? And I held on to that for a long time. And then I kind of like, as time went on, I kind of started looking at like, the universe, everything around me, like the source, like you said, the source. And it helped, it helped me grow so much. And I prayed to God and I asked God, like, what can I do to strengthen my relationship with you? And this was like a couple months ago, maybe a month and a half ago. And I don't know, 30 minutes later, I was like laying in my bed and I had this intuitive thought that like, hey, hit up your friend and see if you can go to church in the morning. And they had already asked me a bunch of times and I was like, I'm definitely not going to no church. I'm not doing none of that. I already had that experience.
yeah.
Um, and before I say this, I am not judgmental on anybody's views of spirituality, what they believe in, because I've had so many beliefs that like I would be a hypocrite to even start to be like, you shouldn't do that, right?
Right.
Like whatever helps me heal and whatever helps my journey grow, like I am all for that and I'm rooting for you 100%,
Yeah.
like literally. Because it started out with me. My sponsor in recovery was like, I don't care what you pray to, just pray. Just pray. And that's what I did. I just prayed and I didn't know what it was to, and it seemed to be working. And then I just started developing my own like, what do I want to give to the world? Love, compassion, care. And so then I was like, well, that's my God then, those qualities. That's what I'm praying to.
Yeah.
And then it just, as time kind of went on, I just started venturing and looking at other things. And uh, so what happened was I ended up going to church and I met my pastor, who is a guy that has been recovered for a while now, or well, hasn't used. He found his sobriety in faith, right? Like some people got to go to recovery, some people got to do. He found his in faith, and we were talking, and I was able to relate to him because he's like me, like literally like me, like from the same kind of neighborhood, and like and so I was like, man, I'm still kind of against church. Like, I just imagine, like, and again, I don't knock anybody for what they believe in. But I just imagine my old school, this guy reading a book up front and like repeatedly telling me I'm going to go to hell if I do this or this or this, right? And so I was like, I don't want to experience that again. I do not want to experience that. Life is going well, but I was like, something is like pulling me to this, so let me check it out. And it didn't end up being that, you know. There is scripture involved, but it's like more of just breaking down the scripture and like trying to relate it to now for us, you know, so we can use it right now. And um, it's been one of the greatest experiences I've had, if I'm being honest. But to get where I was at now, I had to I had to utilize my beliefs at the time.
Right. Oh,
And
I
so like
love, yeah.
I'll never deny that I had a different belief.
Mm,
And I'm not gonna sit here and be the person that's like, oh, because I'm a Christian now, I still don't believe that I can just pray to the source and to love, right?
mm,
And the community might, you know, be like, you know, you shouldn't do that. But like the reality is I get bits and pieces of everything and mold it together.
yeah.
Um, I feel like I have one authority, which is the highest,
Mm,
and I have all these other things too, you know, for me, right? And some people look at that and they're like, well, then you're like, I don't know, you're doing it wrong. You're gonna probably still go to hell or whatever people think, but like it seems to be working. So I don't I don't know if I die and I'm burning up. I had a good life. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm just kidding. But no, my faith is in Jesus now. And I do love it. I do love it. I love going to different areas in life because people need help everywhere,
Yeah.
right? And so like the more places that I go, the more that I venture out, the more opportunities I have to help others.
Mm,
And like that's what I do, you know? So
mm,
like being able to go into a situation that I was like against and scared of and just having the thought of my mind that like there might be people there that you can help. You need to go in there. It it's replaced my fear with faith 100%. Um,
mm. That's extremely powerful, the way that you have described your relationship with God. Because I have always felt it doesn't matter what anybody it's an intimate relationship between you and
yeah,
whatever that is, you know, and it's
hmm
not for anybody
absolutely.
else to
Right,
have any say so in that.
right.
So that's
That's
really
why like
powerful.
that's why typically like I won't go into debates about it. I won't sit here and try to like convince you that you need to do because I don't know what you need to do.
Right,
Clearly, I didn't know what I needed to do, so I had to have a whole bunch of people help me because I didn't know what the hell I was supposed to do. So who am I to try to tell you what you need to do? Whatever works for you,
right.
whatever works for you. I just want to see people flourish into their highest self, right? Their highest form of their self. However you reach that point, keep doing it. Like keep on doing it, you know?
That's so beautiful. Yeah, and that's yeah, yeah, this is just super powerful because a lot of people also when they find something that works for them, they are wanting to be like, "Oh no, this worked for me. This is going to work for you too." And it's like pushing yourself onto other people and, you know, or helping people that don't necessarily ask for.
Yeah.
It's making that noise again, but I don't know.
Like right now.
No,
Still?
it's still doing it. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, there we go. Interesting.
No.
Now it's good. Now we're good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I unplugged the mic. It's probably the mic.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but
So
yeah, I'm a firm
allowing.
believer that like I can help you around your faith. Meaning that like whatever faith you have, whatever your problem is, your faith is nowhere in that situation for me. I'm looking at the problem at hand right now. What you believe in and all of that is like your personal, like you said, personal, intimate business. I
Mhm.
just want to help you with whatever you need help with.
Yeah. I also feel too, even just by you unconditionally loving yourself and living your truth and
Yeah,
doing that is that's inspiring to people. That inspires people to take action however they need to in their lives. So,
I couldn't sit with myself in a room for 5 minutes at one point in my life without like literally wanting to end it because
yeah.
I didn't know how to be around myself because I didn't know who I was. And now I have like a very secure understanding of the person that I am. You know, I have more control over my emotions. So like I'm sitting by myself and reading and like those are all things I never could do that. Like obviously there's something out there working in my favor because I couldn't do it alone, you
Yeah.
know. So it's a testament of something working in my life.
That's beautiful. Is there anything else that you would want us to say before we close up?
Not not really, just like please don't suffer in silence.
Hmm.
Because I know I was all over the place and I know it kind of went everywhere, but like don't suffer in silence. Like I have like so many outlets for different things. So like reach out to me regardless of what the problem is. And if somehow with that certain situation I can't help you, I can guarantee you I can direct you to somebody that can. Basically.
That is amazing. And yeah, I feel we'll probably wind up doing another episode too, because it's really, I actually feel that it wasn't all over. I feel like it was really connected and perfectly guided. I mean, a lot came through, which is beautiful, is and it's super connected to a big message. So yeah.
It all went how it was supposed to. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely it did. Always. It always does.
Change of perspective. Change of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So yeah, wonderful. Well, I am again, I'm very grateful for you being here and being of service and just doing what you do, whatever that is with I mean, you have a big heart, like that is
Thank you.
obvious. So I really appreciate you in all ways. So thank you.
Yes, you've been inspirational. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. And we will talk soon. Oh,
Yeah, that sounds good.
awesome. All right. Take
All
care.
right.